What's the effective cone area on an L7X10?
Well, Drew, you
Oh,
were saying that
L7X15.
L7X15
I know why I said 10, but
hold on, is 35% bigger than a round 15? Is that what you said?
let me go look. I don't remember.
So
It
40%
should
smaller,
be- it should be
40%
like
smaller than a round in
It's
18.
it's 35% larger SD than a normal round 15.
Yeah.
It's 149. Yeah, it's 149 square inches of a cone area.
But so yeah, Drew has this cool.
it may still want to be on the small side. So if you just keep fucking shrinking it until you reach the point of diminishing return, right? But I think 2.2 is just a little big. But I'd shrink it. Would you wanted to gobble up a couple, 2 or 4 cubes?
I was trying to get 4 cubes out of it so I could get it down to 2, basically 2 cubes per sub.
Yeah, I like that. Based on that math, that's where you land. So I dig it.
Yeah, I mean,
good.
Drew has this chart he sent into our group that's just shows like linear volume by cone area, and it's pretty much really close to 2 at 150 square inches of cone. So yeah, it sucks that I have to get down there. That I wish we would have had like way more input into these subs before I built my enclosure, but obviously, like, I basically had it built so that it can receive subs versus having subs to build it for. Like, I don't know. And honestly, I thought where I was right around 2.25 ish was going to be spot on, but obviously it's too big.
Well, being too big is a good problem. I purposely will just build enclosure big as the vehicle can take, and then you just go from there. I've never had a wall build where I chose the subs prior to the, figure out the cabin volume. It was just like, oh, well, I think I can get this many in here. This costs this much. Let's do this.
Yeah, but I mean, if I would have known going into it that maybe like 2 would be the biggest, I would have just started there.
Hey, Dank Coconut. Fuck you.
Whatever.
I'm gonna randomly be turning my camera off because I'm eating. So
you're good.
That's cool. It's all good.
We still got power right now, so I figured to go ahead and get it out of the way.
Right. Yeah, I dig it. Hey, Byron is in Eastern Oregon, and Steve Santos lives in Eastern Oregon. I don't know how close you guys are together, or if you guys want to hug and high five or do whatever. Whatever is cool. But if you're really freaky, you owe me $100 each. Just saying.
Nice.
So what's up, Ray? Let's talk about what do you got? You got finals coming, and you just had regionals, and you're thinking about some crazy stuff. Do you want to like let a little bit of that cat out of the bag, maybe?
Well, I don't want to draw on any negativity, so we're going to skip that out. But definitely
skip the
going
negative
through the
part, but all the
motions.
positives. But yeah,
there's I think for those who don't know, I'm a competition judge. I work California for IASCA, pretty big org throughout the world, everything. But growing California last 4 years, definitely a little bit of challenge there. You get people who are used to different orgs, or just who are new to competition, or just whatever you're going to get there. So what we do every year is we have a bunch of events. I did 28 events this year myself, which is a crap ton of traveling and just preparation and work. And it all kind of culminates, at least for California, for us, to the regional event. So everybody's welcome to come participate in that. But there's only the select people who had all the requirements are eligible for a championship. So we kind of set it up that way. You can win your championship. We get some nice awards, and it's a good time. I think it's sometimes confusing for some people to separate like the thought of like, hey, this group, they get the special awards because they worked all year, versus the rest of everybody who's just kind of welcome to participate. So I think we had a little bit of a confusion over that this weekend, but I mean, overall, it was like a really good event. Other than the temperature, everybody had fun. I had a solid turnout. I did like 50 cars. for California, pretty decent turnout, even considering I think the turnouts have been a little bit low. I think it's one topic that Bobby and I have talked about. We had a call and went over a whole bunch of stuff. So I think the crux of that conversation was like, how can we do better events, get the turnout back? What's going on in the community? Why do some people, get turned off by events sometimes? What's going on there? So kind of that's what I'm interested in talking about today. And then I got some stuff coming up. We got some cool events. We definitely have World Finals coming up at the end of this month. Salem, Oregon is our West Coast venue for IASCA, and East Coast will be in Birmingham, Alabama. So those are going. And then I have a really cool event. We got some property out on the Sacramento River, so it's kind of Northern California. And we do what I call rolling on the river. And it's just a big event. Everybody gets to come. They get to hang out. There is competition, but we're kind of aiming it to be like hang out with people kind of thing. We want to socialize. Want to have a good time. No restrictions on the noise. If you want to crack open a beer, go for it, kind of deal. Like we're pretty straightforward. Just don't do it in the lanes, obviously. But we got like 3 acres, so there's tons of room. You bring your fishing pole, the whole 9 yards. So that's coming up. I got the event posted, so yeah, that's my intro right there.
Nice. How was regionals?
It was 100 and something degrees. It was pretty dang hot, but I think it was good. We had a lot of people who did really well. It's fun to watch, competitors throughout the year. They either get kind of introduced for the first time, and you see their build just grow, and you see like how hard they get hooked on it. And then you see some of the older competitors who are just kind of like, well, I'm still out here, still doing it, bringing out the same build. Nothing's really changed, But at the end of the day, it definitely gets more competitive at regionals, and sometimes there's tensions, and it comes a time where you got to kind of step in and try to be neutral as possible and deal with problems, and that's sometimes a challenge. But I think we had a good time, and I think anybody who you ask right now said it was a good show. So. I was happy. We raffled off like $3,300 worth of prizes. So it was a pretty good raffle, just a good time.
Nice. Good stuff. Yeah, I know my teammate goes up there and ruffles feathers a lot. And I don't really know how much of it is just people having a good time or how much of it is really serious. I pretty much stay out of it. I see the posts and I see them talking back and forth, but then it kind of seems playful at the same time. So I'm not sure.
I think
really mad at who
I gather that it's playful. I know who you're talking about. I don't know if you want to mention him or not. Jamie. But he's got a very competitive build. In fact, he has high chance to win this year in pretty much every class he's going for if he brings it up for a World Finals. So everybody kind of is intimidated by it, where I'm talking like when he sets a record, he's like 3 dB louder than the last record. It's not like a couple tenths. So he shook up the game quite a bit. So it's a lot of playful banter. He's a cool dude. I think he pokes the stick at everybody a lot, but I think everybody they like it. It's fun.
Craig's truck is wild.
I know Bobby got a demo from Craig at the last showdown.
I got a demo like on a random Friday night in Vegas. I was not expecting to have my face punched by a no wall on a Friday night in Vegas.
Oh yeah. No, that's a lot of fun, and like and he likes to smoke a few beers, man. Like just work, like demo in and like, we're drinking the beer now. Like okay, I'll drink it while I'm in the middle of the day. But he's a fun dude. He's got a lot of energy. He's a really great guy to have at an event, and I think he does a really good job with his joking around and trash talking stuff. That he doesn't really make anybody real sour. Sometimes you might catch somebody off guard and they get like, and then they're like, well, that was actually really funny. And he's real loud. Fuck it. You know what I mean? But some of the guys, they're a little sour and then they try to say something funny trash talk. And then it's like clearly real ugly and kind of shitty. You know what I mean? And that's when they start getting at each other and you know, and then another thing is you could see that, you know, he worked his ass off on his build to make it fucking loud, but you see him just like, oh, I'm gonna demo like crazy. I'm not sitting there not playing my build and being weird, and like he doesn't take it too fucking serious. He's just playing with his fucking speakers. Where there are so many guys that are like, they're like, oh no, I'm not even gonna turn it on. I don't want my voltage to go down. I'm not gonna run my AC because I might lose 1/10 of a fucking volt, and I don't want my coils to be hot when I play, or all that shit. And that makes, you clearly can tell those guys aren't having any fun. They're not any fun for anybody else either. They're like,
I mean, some people are there just for just to compete. You know, like Derek Haddock, you know, with Project SPL. So,
I mean, some vehicles,
I know
they
what you're
really
talking about.
are built to not do anything other, right? And Derek, he doesn't sit there weird in his fucking truck. He goes and has some beers and hangs out with everybody. And you don't have to have beers to hang out with everybody, but but like some guys are kind of weird and kind of dick about it.
Yeah, like, a lot of guys don't like if you don't take it that seriously, but you manage to do well.
Right? Yeah, that.
I mean, and
they're sour at other people. You know,
I don't mind talking a little shit. I'm a lot better than I have a story about the past, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. But like with the wagon, man, we didn't try to make it loud. It was just loud. And we didn't take it, like, we competed at excess power with the vehicle off because the alternator belt is shredded. We've been demoing all day. It was the end of the day. I was like, all right, well, let's see how we do. And we were like in the top of the class until someone beat us, you know, ran to beat us, and they got us by like 0.8. I was like, shit, that sucks. But it is what it is. We didn't take it that. If I was taking it that seriously, I would have ran first thing in the morning when I knew everything was fresh. I wouldn't have demoed it all, but hell with that.
Yeah, that's something that we learned at Surf City on the IASCA side and it worked out really good this year because the rain. It rained like the majority of Saturday, so everybody was like not interested in doing the demos at all because they couldn't really. But they were all lined up to do the competition. We were like, well, we're going to run as many cars as we can today because that makes Sunday really easy. And Saturday typically is the day you can't demo much anyways. So we've been taking advantage of that the last several years and just like, hey, if we can run like 100 cars today, that frees everybody up for tomorrow. They can demo to their heart's desire. They've already done all their runs. And with IASCA, there's no bracketing, so you don't have to like go through the whole process of like saving your equipment and coming back around and doing all that. Not as much. We still do like eliminations for the musical runs and stuff, but like for the most part, most guys are pretty cool. Just about like, hey, I just get it done Saturday. We're good. Enjoy Sunday, and that's what we did. We ran 160 some odd vehicles in 2 days, but we did 100 of them the first day. So that was really the key for Surf. I think we got it figured out for the IASCA side.
Just push a bunch of them through on Saturday. Yeah, that's cool. Good deal.
Yeah, I did notice that, like, in years past, the comp lanes at Surf would be just insane. 3 cars wide by 100 cars deep or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
And then, it's not like that anymore. It's definitely not as congested. It's way better.
Yeah, we streamlined it quite a bit. We got a good staff. I think we realized too, like having too many judges is a problem. So we reduced the number of judges this year too, and I think it helped.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yep. I didn't get a chance to run at Surf. I wanted to, but I kept breaking shit.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah.
That's good. we had plenty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
go ahead.
You got Vegas coming up. I guess it's not Vegas now, right?
Right. It's now locked.
I'm a little bummed that we have to drive a little further, but I'm still more excited about the event than any other showdown. And the showdown is probably one of the easiest to be super excited about because almost every year things are a little different, right? So, I mean, at least the last 4, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's been like, all right, here we go. We're doing this. And it's like, well, let's check it out. Let's see how it goes, and it's really cool. I think Laughlin will be really exciting. We got quite a bit of people very interested. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jim intends to have the Guillotine and the Raiden out there for that, and that'll be a lot of fun. And we're making some changes. We're shrinking the port opening on the Ghillie, very similarly to what you have done in the Explorer.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that because I was doing the same thing here. I was like when the subs are cold, we like kick this thing on, we start playing. One amp goes into protect, and then the sub that's connected to the amp that went into protect, the other woofers just beat the shit out of it and damaged it. Yeah. And then we're like, oh, we fucked the sub up. I'm like, shit. And it's like, well, they're pretty reasonable. Swap a sub, 10, 15 minutes. We got a new sub in there, and we're playing, and then all of a sudden another one happens. And gang, 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 gang. And we're like, oh, son of a bitch. And it's like, we got it. And then when I play it, I fucking bring it in. I'm rolling it in slow, and I'm playing, and I start making heat. And once the fucking motors are warm, I can just lay into that thing. But I'm pretty fucking confident I need to shrink that. Even though I was at like 55% of cone area, I still think it just needs to be fucking smaller. And so based on your numbers of going to 40%, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start there. And the way that I built it, it's reasonable to stack layers on it, or even I could pull it out and I could cut it lower if I think I need to. And we're just going to watch what the rise does. We're not getting enough rise at like 30-ish is where it's like, no, it's like not quite 2x rise right there. And the fucking amp's like, protect, bitch. And I'm like, thank you. That's fun. So, but yeah.
So last night I got all my amps. Well, first I took the signal input output from the DSP, and we matched them all at exactly 5 volts. And then we fed that, because basically we went off the amp specs that 5 volts was its max input in low voltage mode. So we wanted to do that, just for noise and everything else that's good about higher voltage. So fed those into the amps, and then we went through all the amps and gain matched them with the DD1 to distortion. So they went from like 77-ish volts to 87-ish volts, so up 10 volts. And the guys at Kicker don't really want me to do that. They rather have me go the other way.
Well, you could match them all back at 87 and then just turn them down. But, you can turn them down all at once from the DSP, so they'll still be matched.
Yeah, as long as I turn, because they're 3 different channels, as long as I turn each channel down the same amount.
You can link them, right? So any adjustments you make.
All of them too,
yeah.
Oh, okay, well, maybe I'll do that. Because my theory behind it, I've always done it this way, is I've always set my gains to clipping, like just under clipping, for the burps, for burp purposes. Just so when I go in the lanes, I could get slightly in the clipping and make max power for 3 seconds. I don't intend on playing full tilt, I guess. I want to, but I guess I can't. So it's too much power. I don't know what to do.
You can't right now, but I think that field side's really, really too big, and I think you're just overextending everything, and that's what's breaking stuff.
Yeah, it's mechanical damage of the cone. It's not like you're making heat in the coils or anything like that.
Yeah, the coils are all fine.
They're just moving too much. That's all.
They are moving too much. I 100% agree with that. I just hope that when I do shrink the sealed side, that it, takes care of that. But
and your low end may even get strong. It'll probably get stronger too.
Yeah, I would figure so.
Do you see Slam Halen gonna get wide body, the rear, and an LS swap?
Really?
And that wrap of the Van Halen guitar theme will get done in paint now.
I know LS swaps are dope, but if he can do it, Coyote swap that motherfucker.
Oh man, it'll cost a third. It's a third of the price.
I know, but it's a fold. But at least it's a Ford, and the Coyotes are so badass. But it's not that thing's not really meant to go super fast. But
I mean, it will.
It
It's
will.
not that fucking heavy. You got an LS in that thing. He'll be able to swing it still.
Oh yeah, it will. That'd be wild.
I think we should wide the front too. I think just the back. I think it needs like hips and titties, right? Like,
does that thing do 160, Bobby?
It's got to be in the neighborhood. I've never put it on a meter. It's fucking loud. I mean, and it's what the Slam Alin's a pretty crazy build in that almost every time you're giving demos in it, especially when you're really getting into it. He had it tuned in a way. Somebody put a limiter on it, and I didn't know how to delete that, and I wasn't operating it, so I didn't figure it out and do it. I know it's pretty reasonable to do it now because I've seen somebody do, but it had like it was like almost everything it could have, but it had a little bit more in it. And the way I would have preferred to operate it is to be able to have everything it could do and then some, and then be able to pull it back if it was dropping voltage or clipping like a motherfucker, or got smelly or smoky or anything like that. But most of the time when I'm demoing it, people get in, they've been in line for a little while, and they get in, and I light it off, and they go, holy fuck, man. And they're like, I thought this thing was going to be like pretty loud, but it's way fucking louder inside than what I expected looking at it outside, because the back section of the vehicle is so solid, it has no fucking flex. You know what I mean? You know,
so it doesn't seem as loud outside.
So it doesn't seem as loud outside. You know, like I mean, it's got some flexy stuff. The doors go a little bit, but like the floor, the roof, the fucking firewalls reinforced. The doors have a shitload of deadening, and the pods reinforce them, and so, you know, it's pretty fucking solid. And so it's fucking real loud inside and outside. I mean, obviously it's fucking loud, but it's not as loud at outside of it as it is inside of it, right?
Yep.
So,
because the wagon was the opposite.
No, the wagon is just real loud inside and out.
No, I mean like the first year. The first year, it was just really loud outside.
Yeah, before you had all that deadening in there, yeah, it looked like it was fucking doing a fucking 170 demo outside, and then you get in and you're like, it's the same loud standing outside of it, but it was still doing like a fucking 58, or you know what I mean, demo. Like it was fucking awesome. So, but yeah, and like the Slam Halen is like in the fucking neighborhood of that. So. Yeah,
hell yeah,
it's a lot of fun, and it's ready. It's we're probably, this is something we've talked about a bit, is swapping to some Warpath batteries so that we can up the voltage to 16 volts, and we're wired to 1.3 ohms on each of those prototype 8Ks we have in there. So if we go to 0.66 ohms, then we're gonna essentially double the power. So and it would be beyond that if we had done the batteries. So if we go to 16 and we drop the impedance, but you know, it's one of those things where it's like, God damn, I don't want to just break the shit out of it then, but you know, like we'll let him love the shit out of it for you know, 6 months or a year or 9 months until he says, I'm ready to start breaking more shit, and then we'll help him. We'll change it so that he can break it, and then we'll fix it and make it strong enough that he doesn't break it.
So over the weekend, I went to Canada for a car show. That was cool.
Yeah, that looked like. I mean, I went to go to that show one year, and they didn't let me in to Canada.
You'll have that. No, it was really good. Everyone was incredibly welcoming and just super nice. Typical, you know, stereotypical Canada people, right? It was great. I'm definitely going back next year, and I'm gonna bring vehicles and all that stuff with me. It was. I think everyone should go out there. And the weather was great. It's not hot.
Nice.
It's killer.
Hey Ray, when Glenn took the Slam Halen through the lanes, was that IASCA or was that a DB drag thing? Was that
he did IASCA?
So that was a 57 average for a run.
I believe so. I could look it up.
That's pretty good. Oh well,
yeah. I think it was a really good run. I was shocked by the truck.
and it's got so much more in it. It's fun build. Like, so that box is like all the volumes is half of the port information, everything about it. It is half of what the Raiden's box is. So it's 612s that are, and then I added 7% volumes, but I kept the port area half.
Yeah.
But half added 7% of the vented chamber volume and 7% on the sealed chamber volume compared to the Raiden per woofer because it's half and coupling and lack of coupling.
Yeah.
Right.
Jamie, I saw you say y'all talking about wanting to do SQ and at the Base Wars stuff in Canada. Are you wanting to do IASCA sound quality, or I would assume because you mentioned it right now, but that would be cool.
Yeah, we just actually also did our sound quality regionals on Sunday. Travis flew down for that. I was not there, but it looked like it was a pretty good show.
Freaking Travis is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, he's flown down a few times for me.
So IASCA or USAC? IASCA then, because the USAC doesn't have a sound quality division that is worth anything currently. Well, they might. I just haven't experienced it ever. When are you reinstating Jeep and Base website?
Reinstating? I'm retired.
It says right here, bud.
I haven't been doing anything with all that. I've hardly uploaded to the YouTube channel. I just mostly doing this IASCA judging. That's primarily what I've been doing, and then life outside of that. So
yeah, Ray's got a baby coming.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So yeah, the YouTube space. I burnt out on YouTube right around I guess once we were kind of in the throes of COVID, which like for other people, like YouTube flourished, because people are just like sitting around watching it. But for me, it was just like, I don't want to be around it was like getting negative. I don't know what it was. At the time I had taken my build apart and I was thinking about walling again, but I didn't know which way I wanted to go. So I did no wall. And now that's what it's kind of doing, and it's taken a few phases since then, and now it just sits. And so I've had like no reason to upload much of anything. I don't have much I'm working on.
I feel that. I cut the Tahoe apart last year, and I was just like, meh, I don't feel like doing anything with it.
I know.
Hey, real quick, guys, we're gonna in about 1 minute or less here, we're gonna shut down the feed on Facebook. And we're just going to be on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook, Jason and Jamie and Eric and Steven Rogers, all you guys that are on Facebook, make your way over. Dylan and Junior and Kyle and Eric. Yeah, all you guys, make your way on over, please, to YouTube, please. That'd be great.
Brian, are you wanting to do a wall or no wall? Because a Patriot is very similar to a Nitro. And I got the sauce for that. The nitros are just loud. That's just a fact. It doesn't really matter what you put in there.
Yeah, it's one of those like cheating.
So I need convincing on what and whether or not I wall again. And it came up. I brought it up on Bobby's call that I had with him the other day. We were talking about stuff. I think I have a weird relationship right now as a promoter with like sponsorship and brands, whereas like if I'm going to put something in my personal vehicle, does that impact like what I'm doing with events? And so we had a conversation about that, and I think Bobby got my gears turning whether or not we're going to do a wall or something again. And then I got to thinking like, well, what kind of wall do I want to do? And funny enough, I kind of want to just do the old school flat wall side port thing. Dude. And just let it hammer. Like I remember
would you do
team setup, man. That was my favorite thing.
218s, or would you do 415s or 612s or 812s or 712s or 212s and 118 or 115 and an 18 and a 12?
All of them, yeah. We'll do all of them.
Oh my god, dude! If we did that shit, if you threw a fucking 18, a 15, and a 12, people would fucking die. They'd be fucking dead. They'd be so mad. different
Does a
woofer in
65.
every spot. You're like, I got a DC and I got a Gately and I got a square kicker.
Let's go.
60 fucking 8 on the glass fucking flat wall. People are like, oh, fuck you, Ray.
Yeah, see, I don't even know what I would do. I was kicking around like 612s or 812s or like 415s or just something. But I miss the I don't know, like they don't have the same bandwidth, but the way that they sound flat walls and just kind of the way it hits. And then for me, it was like I could really get the thing to be
You've
loud.
never had a fourth order wall. You've never had a fourth order wall.
I have not.
Ooh,
I think
there
like
you go.
6 or 7 12s in a fourth order wall, 6, 7, 8 12s in a fourth order might be exactly what you want, sir.
That'd be interesting because I don't know that I necessarily want to like smash lows because that just destroyed my vehicle like beyond, and I can't find doors and stuff anymore. That was kind of part of the reason I undid a lot of it. It was like I was just going through doors and you can't find them, and I kind of want something that just like fucking gets it. Like that's it. It's like it has some bandwidth, but it's
flat
not
wall
like
or driver side ported fourth order.
I think it'd be like a
driver's
side
ported fourth order. Okay.
But I want it like pretty. Like I'd like it to be like more fun to look at than to listen to kind of build. Like I don't know. I just am in a weird place where I hardly listen to the builds anymore. But like every blue moon, I want to go roll it around somewhere and just freaking cram on something. And even these days, like if it's doing over a 50, I'm like fairly happy. But it's like, oh man, I miss the 60s though. I remember driving around with the 60 vehicle, and it was just a totally different game. You're like driving along, and like all my builds are always drivers. So like, I don't know how many people actually have this, but like, I remember driving along, and I'd be out like back roads or somewhere just without a bunch of traffic. I'm not trying to hurt people, but you get
smashing
on it. You're smashing the shit out of it, and you don't realize, but you're going like 20 miles an hour below the speed limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just closed out the Facebook feed and I looked, and Kyle Mitchell may have just jumped in, and it may have been after I explained I was going to drop that shit out. No, he's in there when I was talking about it. He's going to have to figure it out. He'd be all right. There we go. Okay.
So you do a driver like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and the Jeep Cherokee, it's fairly small, so I don't know what I'd get away with, but you maximize cone area with that.
Well, that was for nitro.
How many cubes? Like total enclosure.
I could pull it up. That was 912. Let me go pull it up.
Because the biggest enclosure I comfortably fit into like Shane Spence's Jeep. It's the same thing as my Jeep. Literally the same year and everything. I was able to squeeze like 40-ish cubes because they're fairly small vehicles, but like that was like contouring to the wheel humps and stuff. So like there'd be some obstacles. It wouldn't be as clean as some of these.
You could do something like this, right?
Yeah.
It did pretty much what you're saying you want. Like played lows pretty good, but in that 35 to 45 range was just fucking killed you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want.
This is the old version of the Explorer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did it meter?
A lot of fun.
What's that?
Was it pretty good on the meter?
It did a 64 and change.
Oh, that's all I need. Fuck.
So what I just showed you was 40 cubes
on 18,000
actually.
watts. It was loud.
What I just showed you was 40 cubes. 40.51. Yeah.
But that's like nice and rectangular. Like, did you have?
Well, nitros are pretty. That was with me cutting the wheel wells out, and I'm gonna.
Well, I mean, if we were to work around all of that stuff, and we ended up at 35 or 36 cubes, and we were looking to do 6, 7, or 8 12s, Ray, then you're right there, right?
And I like 12s, and the reason I like 12s, at least when I was with 6 order, was like, number one, you can gang up a lot of coils, right? You're spreading power across a lot of different coils. That's nice. The other thing I like about 12s is, for me, the cones, at least with like the ones that we're using, the cones are like small enough that they're kind of inherently like bracing themselves with the dust caps, so they're not like tearing up to bits like 18s would, like because you get so much cone flex with the paper cone. So like 12 seem just more durable to me. If you get the appropriate basket and everything, but I like 12s. That's just me.
Yeah. Is that 912s, Drew?
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
sweet.
That is super.
Now this is pushing it to the roof, and this is really getting the height's the biggest issue to get 912s in there. But
yeah,
like this also includes possibly cutting the floor out, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, your
and all
Jeep
those options have been on the table for me before because I have enough lift on that Jeep. I could do it. It's just a matter of like how dedicated I am to doing that to the vehicle, because it's been like brought back and forth from restoration and not twice. It's like, am I gonna really go that far this time? I guess I have nothing else I do with it.
Yeah. Ray, how tall? You don't have a whole lot of height, right? The Jeeps are fairly like.
In the front, I do. In the rear, I don't. I think in the rear, I'm like 35 or 36 inches at best.
That's kind of where the nitro is. That's why, easily accessible. That's why I said it might include cutting the floor out in the back.
Yeah, and I can't cut the floor out in the back based on how.
Too?
What's that?
Was that Drew? That drawings? That's all inside the wheel well?
No, that was with cutting the wheel wells out.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's the nitro's lowered on big wheels, but the way they sit, it wouldn't interfere with anything to remove them, basically.
Yeah, Ray. I mean, if you were to do something like that, it sounds like you'd have to cut wheel wells and shit. I don't know.
But no, I mean do like 912.
Limited it to 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Drivers, then he's there. He's good. I mean, he already had 612s and a 6th, and it was.
Yeah, because I gotta think too. Like, if I were gonna build a vehicle, I think the reason I like the Jeeps too, because number one, they're loud. And number two, they're small enough I can't like go out of control with a build.
And they will tow, and it'll drive its own weight very reasonably.
Yeah, it's
now Ray, you would likely be on a juicy lithium bank that's light.
Yes.
And if you save fucking 300 pounds of battery, then shit. There's and you go from a 6th to a 4th order. We do 6 or 7 12s, throw 17,000 watts at them, and maybe we're right there, 62, 64.
Right. I mean, here's the IASCA class that I would probably go for. We do them based in Corneria. We got 3 wall classes, and the upper limit for the lowest wall class is 750 square inches. So that's based on the chart here that we have. That's only 612s. If you go 7, you're just outside of that. So I could go back to a 612 build, do 4th order, make it loud, for sealed up.
And maybe with just 6 of them, it gives you the ability to make the box the exact shape you want it to be to get the efficiency. So
I like it.
Pretty fun gangster.
Can you fit 312s inside your wheel wells, or would you have to?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
It's 42, 43 inches wide off the top of my head between the wheel wells. So I think
it's the height that gets
even if I have to stagger them, I can do it.
Well, you could do too tall for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
You could do 612s easily.
No problem. Yep.
And would you do them all on the back wall like you were showing Drew, or would you do them on the passenger side?
Well, it depends on. I guess it depends on the goal. I mean, if you're doing driver's side port, you want it loud, right? So like your goal is loud. So I'd go ahead and do it forward, because forward's going to be the loudest option.
For sure.
Yeah.
Little fucking 6 or 7.7 degree fucking angle towards the port.
I'd say the only reason you would
I wouldn't do anything.
Don't do any of that. That was some crazy stuff guys were doing a while back when they were claiming results.
So I used to see that on the ones that were more like Steve's, where like they're in that orientation, and they were trying to help the rear drivers have a little bit better loading.
Well, if you look at like Corbin's, it's got a pretty hard angle. Mine had a slight angle. If you want to go with bigger drivers, I'd say do the side angle, because you could probably do 615s. But if you're going to do 612s, I'd do the flat wall, like Drew was saying.
I say 6
most
relentless 12s. Let's go.
most people are doing they're doing the angle when they're sideways. They're doing the angle because that starts to get the phase and time. It physically starts to correct the phase and time issue.
Okay.
That's
that's stuff I had never gotten into, but I had seen and heard about it, and it was like, oh,
but every sub will have its own chamber on purpose.
Yeah. That way you can just like if you lose one, you can play on the remaining ones too.
Yep.
That's kind of nice.
So what I was describing, and I'll describe this real fast. This isn't some shit that I came up with. This was JBL engineers from like the fucking 80s that came up with this. They found that when you start, having two woofers share the same chamber, they would gain efficiency. Sometimes that efficiency would be that it would be more output. The two were better than the together were better than the two separate ones added together in output. They found that if the performance was hindered, if they shrunk the enclosure and port areas and things of that nature a little bit, as much as 7%, they would gain efficiency, right? So when I start designing a box and I'm creating a design where I'm doing 4 or 6 or fucking 12 or 9 drivers, if I'm planning to share the chamber, I will shrink that a little bit. Usually, I mean, if I'm doing 12 subs, I'm gonna shrink it maybe 10% or 12% overall, compared to 1 or 2 subs. So when you're coupling, when you're sharing ports, when you're sharing chambers, fucking magic happens and you get a shitload of efficiency. Sometimes you don't actually want to make the chamber smaller because maybe you are already on the edge of too small to begin with. And so it might just be better when they come together. But that's a matter of testing.
If you want to hear something kind of wild,
John Nolte broke this down to me in a lot better detail. And then when he was like, it's a term that fucking sound engineers use, is coupling, when they're talking about this. And when we started to look it up, we found some information about some JBL engineers that were describing it in their big high performance subwoofers for concert venues or some shit. So
anyway. What was wild, I saw the post come back up on my memory feed the other day, and there was a point with the 612 build, right? 6-order shared chamber. And what I did was I just like turned off the amps. Like I only played like 2, so I had 2 12s per amp, so 3 amps. I turn off 2 of the amps and just see what 2 12s would burp. And the vehicle peaked at like 26 sealed up. So
I broke it.
With only 2 12s, it would still bust over 50 at 26. With 4 12s, it'd do a 55 at 26, and with all 6, it would do a 57 with all of them. It was kind of wild how that, how they would kind of like.
Well, they weren't acting the same either, because the other drivers were all passive radiators for all of that.
Right.
And it did a completely different dynamic from 2 with 4 passives and 4 with 2 passives and the ports, right? And all of that. So it's pretty crazy.
What was just awesome about that setup was it just, no matter what, it always was good. Like I could run it on 5 subs and it was fine. Like I'd have.
I remember a sub being physically on fire at the barbecue, and you were like, let me turn it off for a second and make sure that one's not like still on fire. And then like
just
once
unplug
the fire was out and he unplugged it, and he like just turned it on again. There's like chunks of cone go zinging by while he's giving somebody a fucking demo, and it didn't look quieter. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure it probably lost a dB and a half, but like when you're doing a 62, a 61, a 60 and a half isn't really significantly different to somebody getting a demo. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that was a fun setup. But yeah, I like the idea of a 4th. We should do a 4th.
I think that's the direction we want to go. And what we'll do, Ray, is we'll design the shell and we'll start building it, and we'll render it, send some of that information over to Drew, bounce some of the idea off, shoot him a couple of bucks, and then we'll put that thing together using
you don't got to shoot me nothing. All you got to do
that I have in mind for you.
All you got to do is staying on business on them Facebook posts. Leave them up. Next time, tag the person.
Well,
I know that's not who you are. I know.
All that got resolved, and so we're good. And I also realized too, I'm like, well, I think Travis is going to get mad at me if I keep this up. So I pulled one down and I got a little more PC, but I was pretty pissed for sure.
I mean, do you want to talk about what happened without saying names? Because I don't even know I don't know what happened. I just saw your post.
So
people,
I don't want to
people were being lame
up by talking about it too much, but in general, I think what turns people off in the competition world is that there's a lot of BS that happens. Like people are trying to cheat, or they're with their friends and they're doing things that are a little shady. And what happened to me was essentially, I think all the parties figured it out, but what had happened at least at the event before we had kind of come to an understanding was my competition lanes, my IASCA's, event essentially got kind of used as the playground for like this big drama fest between a couple of groups of people. And, I'm not aware of it and I'm conducting an event. And what had happened was a vehicle got borrowed from another competitor to beat another competitor. And we don't have like any ruling against that. I did have a criteria of like I said earlier, like if you're going to do the regionals event and become a regional champion, like you have to have like your membership, you have to have your points. Those points and membership get tied to the vehicle you used. If you're going to borrow a vehicle and it's like, well, you can run it, I'm not going to like deny that, but you're not in the running for the championship. You can post whatever score you want. So that's all that was going on, but it had confused enough people. And I think there was enough drama happening outside of my knowledge that it really made it go south. And so
also that vehicle going through the lane had no IASCA ramifications. It was just an award at the end of the day that was a Ray Pimley, here you go guys, loudest of the day.
Right. So I'll explain too, and we don't have to get too deep because not all of your
but I mean you didn't. I mean that's such a pertinent piece of information regarding the whole thing that I had to make sure I pointed that out.
Yeah, thank you. So the regional event, like I was saying earlier, it's a little bit like the tensions get high. I think people kind of build it up to something that it's not. Really, it's the big event's world finals, right? Regional finals, something I kind of started doing because California, we don't get a venue here. Most of our guys have to drive up to Oregon. So for those who aren't going to drive up, I kind of do what I am calling the finale or finals. And a lot of the other regions for IASCA throughout the country have adopted it. And they just it's a kind of a celebratory end of seasons type show. It's really, though, to the basics, it's a 3X event. It's just a big 3X event. So what I do is everybody's allowed to participate. Anybody, if it's your first time, if it's your 100th time, whether you're qualified or not for the championships that I put together, you're welcome to compete. And there's no limitation on that. However, if you're if you're just coming up and you haven't met all the qualifications, I'm not going to give you a championship. I don't care if you have the loudest score of the day or not. It's a first through third championship ranking. That's all have to give based on the rules, first through third awards. But me as Ray Pimley, I try to put on a nice event and I put specialty awards together. So I kind of have one celebrate loudest of the day in this format, loudest in the musical format, maybe like best install, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Not a requirement. And there's no rules on them. I hand them out just based on how I hand them out. And so the first 2/3, I sorted them out, got them to the correct people, the people who actually had earned a championship. And then the specialty awards, I sit in there, I'm like, well, these are just tied to the event. They're not like for a championship. They're not for specific people. They're just for the event, like anybody. I'm just going to get on my computer and filter out and sort who was loudest today. Okay, this was the loudest vehicle. whatever, here's the award. Well, that vehicle turned out to be the one that got borrowed, and that really just created issues, and everybody got confused about like, well, what's the rules say? You know, what does membership mean? What do points mean? I'm like, well, hold on, you gotta separate these awards I'm doing myself just for the gift to you aren't something that is tied to IASCA and its rules, right? And I think that got everybody really confused, and we've tried to deal with that a few years, and I don't know if there's a good way. I'm at the point where I'm like not really willing to do the specialty awards anymore, but I got a bunch of people who were like, well, we really want you to, and you should. It's like I would like to, however, it seems like every year I get to this finals event and I get like a lot of problems. Like
I think when you're doing regionals and you're doing finals, all those raise special freebie secondary awards, those should not be a thing. But at the regular, like it's almost like the club event, right? You know what I mean? It's like, well, it's all, when you're somewhere in the vicinity of Sacramento and whatnot, it's usually going to be the primary same group, and everybody's this core group, and they understand how all that works. And then you also need to broadcast that this is my personal Ray Pimley's fucking loudest of the day, or the most stinky coin of the day fucking award, whatever it is.
Did that vehicle sign up and run like in IASCA?
The person who ran it was all signed up. In fact, that person had all the points and a membership, but I denied them a championship because that vehicle wasn't the one listed on their membership. So that's a criteria that we use at World Finals. I kind of applied it to my regionals.
I think that's exactly what you should have done. But as far as them like getting the loudest of the show, being an IASCA competitor, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't know why people would.
All of it's totally legit, right? Now, not only did it's one thing if you're like, I don't like it, I don't agree with it, that sucks, I wish you did better. But that's not what they said or did. There was like real grown man bitch fits from a few different people.
I don't want to get everybody.
I know you don't. But I'm just saying, I just want to make sure that Steve and Drew have a little bit of an understanding. Some of the guys here, I'm sure they need to understand, and it's like.
Well, I would say, Ray, to keep those awards, because I think it does help bring maybe some people to the show that don't have points.
Well, it makes it really exciting too. And don't you think it makes sense to not have them for regional finals and finals because everybody's so uptight?
I think it depends. If you're trying to have as many people at your show as possible, I'd say keep them. If it's more just about this is regionals for the people that have been competing, then just get rid of them because
get rid of them
for that reason to compete in regionals.
And maybe you have to really
or maybe don't do like anything that has to do with the meeting.
You go, hey, here's these specialty awards. These have nothing to do with IASCA. Let me give these out first. Want you guys all to know this has jack shit to do with who's our regional champion and finals and points or anything else. That's these are Ray's awards. They're over here on the fucking left side of the fucking thing. And then you go, and here's these awards. These are the real ones from IASCA that actually mean something. And then that way it's clear for these guys to.
What I've learned, I'm gonna be honest, is no matter how clear you try to make this stuff, the translation doesn't get to everybody.
Well, then
So look, I'm gonna be honest. They should just get their head out their ass. It's not complicated. I'm not even there, and this makes sense. Right. Or they probably get it. They just want to cause an issue because they didn't win. That's always the fucking problem. When they don't win, it's the problem.
Yeah.
Some of these guys do that shit even when they did win.
I know a few people probably know who we're talking about and who we're not. I want to reiterate that those people were good now. This conversation applies to everybody.
This is
problem every year with a different group.
And I've never even been to a West Coast show. This happened. What the issue you're talking about happens everywhere.
I've heard about people crying about stuff.
This is what I told Nick whenever, and then my buddy Patrick and anyone who was working on the wagon or the nitro said, look, we have to document every single thing that we do to it on video and picture. Everything has to be documented. And they're like, why? I'm like, because no one's going to complain. No one's going to ask. No one's going to protest. No one's going to say anything until they get beat.
Yep.
And if they get beat
100%
embarrassingly
true, right
bad,
there.
they're going to throw a fit. It does.
Literally every time.
I said, if we don't win, no one will ever question it. No one will ever care. But as soon as you beat someone, they care.
And here's the thing that's really the biggest pet peeve of mine. This is the literally got to be the hardest thing about being a judge is, we call it out in the rule book. I think it makes sense that if there's a problem, like I make mistakes, right? I'm human. That happens. I have judges that I've known who've made mistakes, and it's totally reasonable if you're a competitor and you have a question about something or you didn't agree with something or you maybe just didn't understand what had happened, that you can come up and talk to a judge. And that judge should be able, if they're a good judge, they should be able to talk it out with you and have a good reason. And if there's not a good reason, then that's okay. That's time for the judge to start saying, like, okay, well, maybe there was a blunder here. What I don't ever get, and I've never afforded the opportunity, I don't know why it is, it's rare that they actually come up and talk to me. What happens is it's like on my drive home or like a couple of weeks later, there's a big old like potato fight food fest happening on Facebook. And I'm like, whoa, I left that show thinking we were good, that I got all the results
What's
posted,
unfortunate
everything was
is,
set.
as
And
you
now
know,
we're weeks out, and here's a problem. That drives me up a wall more than anything else could. And it's like I don't understand why, I feel like I'm pretty approachable. I'm there all day. If you feel like you're bothering me, it's worth bothering me over something like that because it's going to save so much down the road. You know what I mean? So that's my main message to everybody is if you're working, with your officials and you're nice to them and you're going to, come up and talk to me like a man, talk to me like a human, talk to me like a friend. I'm here to try to fix that. And if I made a problem or I made a mistake, I'm going to own up to that.
but
But
don't
when it's
bother
weeks
this
later,
man if
it's not going to happen.
like be real. Like if you were down 9 dB, leave it. Shut up on Facebook and in person.
Agreed.
Just stop, bro. That's like the dude who protested Chris Munson one year. He was 7 dB back. I was like, bro,
Well, and I
stop.
had Surf City. We had a really clean show. Went really good. I only knew of two small issues, and again, it was the same thing with one of these California guys goes up there for the first time, and his vehicle's loud, and it's potentially louder than some of the guys up there, and that every year seems to create something, and the dynamic that starts to happen is that some of the competitors up there begin to think, oh, well, Ray's guys get to cheat. They get to do things that we don't, and
Nope,
that's
they're losing.
he's
That's all it
unchecked in
is.
California and all this. And I'm like, well, if these guys are coming up to this event, and I got other world record judges who came from all over the country, don't you think those judges would notice that my guys are messed up and they would DQ those guys for me? That never happens because my guys never actually had anything wrong. It's just the perceptions there, right? So we had an issue with a double windshield rule.
Oh yes.
I had a competitor. He came to me and he asked, he's like, so what's up with IASCA? Is there a double windshield limitation or anything? And I'm like, based on my knowledge, I think we're one of the only orgs that's allowing it in kind of our more advanced classes. So we're talking like the tier below, like extreme. But obviously, we're not going to be doing that in like our stock classes. And they were like, wow, that's cool, because other orgs aren't necessarily doing that. I'm like, yeah, I think we were one of the first or only that kind of allows it. We don't see the issue. But if you read the language in the book, it's not like explicitly said like, oh, you can't, you can use double windshields. The book essentially says is like, you just can't replace the windshield with like some other material or like, essentially that's all it's talking about. It asks to, replace with OEM material, but it doesn't say you couldn't replace with double OEM materials. And so I did more research with the other judges and we talked about it. And it turns out like this question's been around since 2014. So we're talking 10 years and all the judges are in consensus that like, yeah, we have no issue with the double windshield thing. So I was like, yep, you're green lighted. Go ahead and do what you're going to do. Nobody's going to have an issue at surf. You're good. Well, we get to surf and the competitor group in his class has an issue. In fact, in other classes too, which is another pet peeve of mine. It's like, why are you worried about these guys that aren't even in your same class?
Well,
And
that
I
goes
never
back
was asked
real
about
quick.
it all day,
Real quick,
And
Ray.
Go for
Real
it.
quick. With regards to that circles back to that thing that we were talking about the other day, is where people do need to be responsible for their people, right? And like if you think somebody's cheating, right? Like here's an example, like 2018 finals when that dude Ron was cheating his ass off in like 3 different ways, and me and a couple other guys are like, they pushed that fucking car up the fucking lanes. It did not drive on its own. Like
Right.
that is not fucking legit, dude. And I was like, fuck no, dude. That is fucking cheating. I wasn't even competing. I just went to go check it out, and I'm all and I had no beef with these guys. I was super cool with all those guys. I was like, why are you pushing this? That's not cool. That's not legit. If it can drive, they're like, it drives. I'm like, drive it then. And then they didn't drive it. Right. It's 104 degrees. There's fucking 5 guys pushing a car up a hill. Fuck you.
They had like some stuff that wasn't fully closed. There were a bunch of
issues. The hat didn't latch. There was all kinds of shit. But they were fucking cheating, and there was a lot of us, but not enough.
I got cheated in the trunk.
That guy still rocks that ring. He's like, I'm a fucking world champion. And be like, you're a fucking cheater. But
wow.
And that's why people do, if they do think somebody's fucking cheating, you know what I mean? And it's like, hey, you know, and it's okay to be like, hey guys, what's going on? Come on, man, that looks like that's cheating. That looks bad. I would want to know if I was involved in all of it, you know? And when it was presented to me, it was like there was a little bit of beef with the double windshield thing, right? Because it's the homie right over here. And I was like, oh, and they were like, it's legal. We looked into it before we bothered. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done it.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's
like
right.
Sean called me a bunch of times. I have messages I could screenshot that go back dates prior. I've had. So this is another thing I don't think the competitors always understand is like they think, you know, the judges just are guessing at stuff sometimes. It's like we have a lot of meetings. I have a meeting about every month with all the other judges because we always have little things that come up that the book doesn't cover. And we always come to some sort of answer. And like the next meeting is going to talk about some of the stuff I had to just deal with because, you know, the book can't ever cover everything. There's always a gray area. And the competitors will slam the book at you and be like, well, what's your interpretation of this? Because I don't agree. And it's like, well, we got 6 judges together from across the country and we all interpreted it this way. You know, this is how
we came to this conclusion.
Yeah, this is how we're going to act with the rule. If it needs more clarification, then, you know, maybe next year you'll see an additional sentence in the book. But until then, like, this is the decision. Why are you getting up in arms? Right? You go into other chapters that blatantly say the judge's decision is final decision. Why aren't you agreeing with that part of the book?
And then
when you guys have these meetings, sorry, Drew.
You're good.
When you have these meetings, Ray, do you guys keep notes or do you like? I mean, you probably do, but I don't know if you already do this, but it may be a good thing to do to post on IASCA Worldwide after every one of these meetings, like updates to rules or things you guys discussed that could be pertinent to rules. Like, say the windshield thing. It could be something like, hey guys, I've been talking to this competitor about a windshield and I've discussed it with multiple judges and we are now allowing this. Like, just a quick post on Facebook after a meeting.
So that's not really how I would describe what we're doing. I think it's not that we're just all of a sudden now allowing something because
well, it's not necessarily just
what we're not doing is changing the book during season, right? We're holding true to what the book got published. I think
and at the end of the year decide whether that's to stay. You can have double windshield or it says no double windshield.
No, I get that. I guess what I'm saying is like throughout the year you're having these clarifications come up.
Clarifications,
you guys clarify them. You post these clarifications so that, you know, it's kind of an updated rule book. It's like a living thing throughout the year so that everybody's on the same page. So when you come up to a show, it's like, dude, go back on the thing 2 months ago. We posted about this double windshield thing. Like it's there, you know, just anything like, I don't know. I think it could be some sort of like an insurance for you guys, but also then the competitors don't really have an excuse. Like it's all right there, you know.
They'll find something, but
yeah, I think what we have been doing, and maybe we don't do it this way, but we've disseminated the knowledge via the judges, like to the competitors directly as needed. Because when you do the social media thing, it goes back to this big issue of people aren't interpreting the full story, and they are making assumptions based on the limited amount of words that you posted, and that will turn into a bunch of problems too. We've had that. So
like then you made an official post, and if it's worded in the funniest little way, then all of a sudden they want to interpret it a certain way, and some guy shows up with fucking 14 windshields stacked on top of each other, and then it's like, well, or they're like, yeah, it's got a windshield, and then is another windshield, and then it's full of rebar and cement in between them. And it's like, okay, fuck.
Yeah, that's not, yeah. And I can pull up, usually it's like I pull up the language and I'll talk about it with each individual competitor. And like, I think we're still finding what's best. I don't know if there's a good or best way. I just saw, it looked like there was a comment about doing the meeting before the event. And funny enough, that's literally what I did Saturday. And I still ran into amazing amount of problems. So it's like you can say it and it doesn't stick because people get emotional potentially, or they didn't interpret the way that you meant it. So I think all judges who are really trying and care, they probably struggle with that internally, and I know I do. And unfortunately, I think that issue is why competitions are kind of unpopular versus like just regular demos, because people just aren't into all that drama. And it's like, it's not even the organizations that are causing the drama half the time. It's literally just there's a select few that kind of ruin it for the
winning.
Oh,
I'm gonna say it again. That's because someone who's winning in their class is building for their class. The chances of them not understanding a rule or having it figured out by the time they're at the top is very slim. So it's always the people fighting for last place. I hate to say it like that, but
no, dude, there's
I've been competing for
rare
16 years, so I mean, and the South has been very, very active. I'm in a little hotbed of SPL. Like the first Trunk 160 was done 10 minutes away. One of the first CRX 60s was done. It's a bunch of loud stuff around here.
You're in that neighborhood, yeah.
It does happen,
Perry,
though,
right?
because I know when Carlos went to finals one year, there was an issue with the windshield. He had been competing all year with it, and then getting the finals. And dude, this is the top, like basically the loudest, one of the loudest guys in the world. He knows all the rules, and getting there and like it being a conflicting thing. I mean, it does happen, but I know what you're saying, Drew. For the most part, they know the rule book. And it's not that he didn't know it. It's just that
I'm not saying that he didn't. I'm like the people protesting it are like, look, like if he's been doing it all year through all these judges, throwing a fit about it now is pointless because it's gonna go through.
Right. Yeah, and that comes back to sometimes the judges aren't. I think we I don't want to get too deep. We definitely didn't have the easiest world finals in Alabama last year. There were definitely some misses on the judging side, and it created some issues. And so we had to end up regrouping and really deciding like, okay, we need to get some meetings together because we're not on the same page with how we feel or the way we're checking on the rules. And I think this year we're going to be way better. We've developed a checklist. Like, hey, we're going to look at every judge is going to look at every car. Because like last year, I'm running a computer. I'm depending on like 3 or 4 judges to check something, and maybe they all missed it by accident. And if I walked out there, I would have saw it immediately, and I've been like, "Oh, that's like the first thing I look for. What are you guys missing that for?" But then like the opposite thing could happen the other direction, right? Where I'm missing it. So we got a checklist now. We're going to be doing a lot of inspection prior to the event this year. Way more just in-depth kind of analysis because we're trying to find those little areas that people are going to try to like push and then create a big problem out of, right? And finals seems to be where people really get contentious about that. And
because they lose.
Yeah, exactly. It's
because they lose.
The same point back again. So,
which I mean, we're all like that to an extent, right?
Yeah.
This is what everybody can learn from this is that the
just
fucking
sound quality. Golly, brother.
They're bad.
The champions, sound quality and everything else, all of the guys that fucking win know every little fucking gnat's ass detail of that fucking rule book, and they communicate directly with the judges, making sure they're not fucking anything up. Jeff Huld and I were talking about it, and he's like, if you want to compete and be competitive, just start studying the rule book.
Yep.
Study it. One, you'll learn so much shit about how to get loud from the rule book.
Yep.
And how to sound amazing. And then from there,
I asked Travis and all the other people who are in charge. So I read through every rule book for sound quality. I'm all right. I don't know anything. Let me read this to see where I fit, and let me see this and that, this and that. So like the front sub thing, I have a front sub which would normally put me in a higher class, but it's an OEM location and OEM option for the truck, and it looks OEM. You can't see it. It looks factory. So in every org, it fits into the lower class because of that.
You're a fucking cheater.
But if I hadn't have done the time to, I mean, look, I'm not beating anybody, so we're good. No, I'm not beating anybody. We're good. But if I hadn't have taken the time to research that, I just told them, oh, I got a front sub, boom, higher class. Not that I have a front sub in an OEM location that I've already talked to. I talked to Travis. All the other orgs, whatever. You gotta go through the rule books, especially if you want to take it seriously.
Are there any stock cars that have huge holes in the kick panel?
That have what?
They have a big gaping hole in the kick panel. Is that?
What if it was just rusted out?
I mean, it's kind of like a. The Volkswagen have like a arm-sized hole behind the taillights. I mean, who knows what's in the kick panel?
Yeah, I mean, old cars like my dad's Firebird. It's got an air vent in the kick panels you can open up.
Technically, the Ford Explorers, if you remove enough plastic out of the new Ford Explorers and enough foam from in between the subfloor and the floor, there is a wide open tunnel from the kick to like it dumps in the back of the vehicle.
Wow.
There you go.
It's huge because some people use that they'll do IB mid bases cut into the floor, but it's not exposed the elements because it's just in that big tunnel underneath the car.
Interesting.
So yes, there are vehicles with openings in the kicks.
Yeah, you want to start cheating legally? Find these stock cars that have like stuff that
will get like. And then that's another thing. The cheater vehicles. That's my favorite because people call them cheater vehicles because the people learn them so well. The first time we got a CRX here, boy, I didn't know how we were fucking it up so bad. I'm gonna be honest.
I remember a dude buying a fucking Caravan and like thinking he was just gonna fucking get a free fucking 10 dBs and it doing nothing better than like his pickup truck. So,
yeah. You don't just buy a CRX and automatically be loud. You
do a fucking 70
that way.
Let me ask you guys a question. So there are people have an idea of what a good SPL car is. Like in your mind, what vehicles do you think would be best for it? What makes a good SPL vehicle, I should say? Stock one, like short cabin, long bed, short.
It depends on what you want to do. The shorter the better if it's proper SPL to an extent. And then the longer you want long as hell if you want lows. That's why I look at DD Tank and all these low vehicles. They're super super deep for wave propagation. Yeah, that word sounds right.
For the class that you're aiming for too, I think it makes a big difference. Like the size for SPL, like in lower power classes, like for IASCA at least, where you're being forced to keep everything in a cargo area and you can't utilize your fold down seat space. It's kind of the ratio of your cargo area to your cabin area, and CRXs tend to be good because they don't have the rear seat, so we consider that factory cargo. My Jeep Cherokee is known to be a loud vehicle. It was competitive with CRXs when I was doing stuff, but the cargo area is minuscule compared to the cabin area. So I really only can do so much with that. I only can get so much equipment back there. So then ultimately the CRXs do kind of take over once you get to the bigger mid-tier classes. But then you're Craig Ball, for instance, and he's dominating the no-wall musical classes because he's got real estate to just freaking throw subs in this big old giant expedition, and he's beating guys all left and right. But granted,
how many roofs?
There were some CRXs that were close
Craig
to him
had to put on his truck.
What's that?
How many roofs? How many new roofs has he had to put on the truck?
That flipped us out at Autorama because we were looking at the car and we were getting ready to DQ Craig because Craig's roof looked like it had all this special I don't know what's going on with the roof. And I'm like, what the hell? And it turned out it was just the way the light was touching it. It was just a different color roof because he had replaced it from another vehicle.
That's
and we're
right.
like, what? Had to get up
No,
like really close.
He's done it at least 3 times. Yeah, he's done it 3
Yeah.
times. 3 times he's put a new roof on it. Now, when we were at
that's
Surf,
wild.
when we were at Surf, we realized that the guillotine was ripping the roof like bad. And then we realized that the Banging on Wheels was ripping the roof fucking bad. Yeah. And then the Soulgasm was popping the windshield off again, and it was ripping the roof in a different spot and in a different way. Fucking real bad. And by the time we were packing these things up to go home, it was like, dude, you could just open the fucking Banging on Wheels up like it was a fucking can of sardines. The seams, because it's a blow through, but it has wood laminated to the roof. But the seams that go all the way down the side, it's just spot welds and panel bond, and it's fucking ripped all the way down both sides. Like if you separated the windshield, like you could just fucking blow the roof off the goddamn thing. So I can understand how his shit, which is way fucking louder than those vehicles, would entirely lose the whole fucking goddamn roof. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then, everybody talks about, like, for the trunk cars, they talk about the old EF Civics, the early 90s, late 80s box Civics. And, yeah, those are probably among the loudest in the world. But
those and BMWs, if you know about it.
Yeah, the BMWs, I personally, I know people with the 6th gen Civics, like they're the more rounded out Civics, and they're all within like fractions of being able to keep up with all the F scores I've ever seen. And then I remembered some guy had a Mazda at one point that was super competitive, so everybody thinks of this one car, but I think it comes down more to just who put the most time into which car. And probably the EF received a lot of effort because 1 or 2 guys got loud with one, and then everybody kind of went for that. And then all these years later, you still got guys thinking that's the pinnacle of it. But it's like, well, have you tried looking at any other car?
It's the pinnacle because, basically, whatever vehicle someone really puts it, you get like a Munson or, someone like that who puts in
full-time job.
The Munsons put more time into testing the angle of a steering wheel than most people put in testing their whole system.
Yep.
And that's where you get these legendary vehicles, known for being loud, come from.
Do you
One
think
person figures it out?
Well, obviously you can because Greg's this way. So, like, you guys know what a Jeep Comanche is?
Oh yeah, I want one really bad.
They
it's
do
the
make
same thing as my Cherokee, but it's a truck.
They make a long bed too. That's like a 7-foot bed. It's like you could have such a small cabin in that thing, and then this massive, absolutely massive enclosure. I really should have fucking bought one. I don't know why I didn't.
That's like,
but it's like if you take like Greg's build, it does in the 80s, and then it also does in this mid low 60s and the low 20s. So you could take a build like a Cherokee or like a Comanche and build something really long like Greg has. And I would imagine that it would do fucking insane numbers if you could keep the cabin together.
Yeah,
right.
You have to go extreme.
Or one of the hard top Suzuki Samurais would probably be a lot of fun too.
Those would be good for SPL because they're small. But if you want something that'll probably play lows and highs, like that Comanche, I think is
limousine.
It's gotta be. It's
like a Dodge Magnum limo. Fucking, we're like, what do you got there? I got 21 15s in a quarter wave 6. It's tuned at 7.4 hertz.
Why don't we see more single cab long beds in SPL? Like, I feel like nobody's really fucking with those when you.
Well, they used to be all the lowrider little trucks back in the day. That used to be like the thing, and now nobody even touches them.
It doesn't make sense because I know people.
I love my mini truck.
Well, at least out here, I don't see them.
So kind of an example of that. So Stephen Duncan's old blow through the 415s one took like a bajillion watts to do a 60, but we got it to a 60 in a crew cab. That same enclosure, a local friend of mine now has it in a single cab Chevy truck. It did a 57 with like 7K or something silly.
Like a lower amount.
Yeah, like the first turn on was a 57, and I was like, all right, well, that's going to do a 60 as soon as we get to any type of power. But it took Steven, 30,000 watts and everything it had to do it. But smaller cabin.
You know what vehicle is really loud that nobody knows about hardly for the stock classes? What I had come across with an old friend. We came across a Nissan Stanza. It's this
Oh
little
yeah.
boxy ass little car with a slider door. It was a piece of absolute shit, but it was loud. I had my box for my 215s out of the Civic. The Civic was doing like 155s on 5K back in the day for DB drag. We just took that box and we flopped it into this car, and it was doing like a 151 on 2K. And I'm like, oh, there's something about this car that's weird. And so we built a box appropriate to the car, and I was easily getting up past 154s on 2K with 2K stock class at the time. And that was like, okay, there's something here. And I only had ever built one box for it. We didn't stick with the project, and I always was like, man, if we'd only like stuck with that, I bet you could have gotten that thing even further up there. And at the time, like a 54 was like super competitive.
Damn, son.
It was like a 51 used to be the high score in that class in like 2015, and then only a couple years later we were looking at 54s. So I think that car, somebody should get one and like really work on it.
You guys, how many rolls of that silver tape did you have in that fucking thing, Ray?
Yes.
Stupid.
Yes.
Well, okay, so that's the downside.
Dude, that
of
fucking thing was made of that fucking silver tape, dude. He probably has fucking 50 rolls of that shit dumped in that thing.
The box was just a silver tape box. Like it was so funny. That box was like neutered and cut and put back together and spliced so many times. We'd run the whole box through the table saw just to like shrink it like an inch, and then like slap a new top on it and like throw it back in the car. But that car's downside is the rear windows are like the pop out windows, like in like trucks, like Ford Rangers and stuff. It was the same thing. So like you'd have to like tape those all shut, and then like for IASCA, we're kind of a little bit more strict on the tape stuff. So I don't know how well that car could do. I guess you could run it in a few of the classes, but like the lower classes were pretty strict on it. At the time, DB Drag was all right with it, at least to my knowledge. Our judges, but I've lost track of where their rules are now. But interesting car for sure. Piece of shit.
Stanza? You still talking about that car? You still talking about the Stanza?
Yeah.
Okay.
Little four banger, little box.
Did you say you had one? Is that what you said, Steve?
No. I just wasn't sure if you were still talking about the same car. Because like to have all that foil tape in a car you only built one box for is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so the foil tape, yep, that's the actual like foil tape.
No,
not the plastic one.
I saw this thing at an event, and I see them, and I'm like, what in the fuck are you guys doing? And they're like pulling up to the mics. They're in the lane, and they get out and they're like telling me about it, and like fucking Doug Stockton's like, hey, like, come on, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I got distracted. And they're telling me about it, and they're like closing it up, and they're all excited, and fucking Ray and James it was James Hayes that you and him were playing with that thing, and they're getting the mic in there and they're getting all ready, and then it fucking pops this fucking pretty fucking awesome score, and they're like, oh, they're all laughing and fucking happy, and they've been blown away, and everybody's like, what the fuck? They're like, wow, and they're all happy for him, and nobody was negative about it. And they go over and they open it up, and I'm like, how much does fucking tape you have in
Looks
here?
Looks like fucking NASA got in there. And
he's like, when I don't know what else to do, I grab another roll and just start taping.
Like, there it is.
It beat the West Coast's loudest CRX at the time. So that goes to show that car has potential.
There you go. Yeah, dude, there's probably so many cars out there we don't know about that would do well. Nobody just fucks with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta do like all the fucking work, like all of it. Like
because if you try to do a vehicle that's already been done, then it's already been done.
Yeah, it's like you basically just have to have a drug dealer money supply. So
or you just gotta have a nitro because that's already the loudest.
There you go.
Yeah, if you got like fuck you money and your car audio is just your thing, you just like, I'm just gonna buy a new car not a new car, but an old piece of shit every day. Just throw this box in every single one until
just figure out which one I like the most and then go with it.
Just see what happens.
Yeah, find where the magic happens. You're like at a fucking wrecking yard, fucking just off in the fucking you're like, nah, that's no good. You're like in your bag and a fucking head unit strapped on your chest like fucking Darth Vader and shit.
Yeah.
That's legit the best idea ever.
Pop it in there. Fucking all right. You're like, this
But
is
you could easily put like a Stetson 10K and a badass little lithium in a duffel bag.
No, I get better. You like looking on Facebook Marketplace for cars for sale, and you're like, that looks like it might be a good one. And like you fucking have the guy pull up, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna do the test run.
Yeah.
So the whole foil tape thing before everybody goes and buys
the fucking mic and the shield, fucking plop a drop, fucking double 15. Fucking Cubert box thing with a big horn poured out the front. And fucking dude's like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Like, hold on, you're scooching the box around a little bit. Yeah. You're like, hey, flip the visors forward, bro. Flip the visors forward. Flip the visors, bro.
The foil tape thing, like, it can work. It's not like you're gonna get like 10 dB out of it, and you have to be very careful when you're doing it, because they can't have wrinkles, right? I spent a lot of time timing up the technique, how to do arrow ports with the tape and how to get the tape to like mold as you're going through the flare and stuff. You have to have it perfect, or else you're not going to help. So you have to be very careful with how you're applying it.
Why does the tape work versus like a perfectly smooth, polished piece of PVC tube or fiberglass?
Well, I think they're never perfectly polished. Is the problem?
I was about to say, because number one, it's partly making it smooth, because it's going to be smoother than you can ever make it, but it's sealing stuff too.
Yes, that's for like MDF boxes, Bobby, like you've talked about on your table, right? The MDF is actually porous.
It's a sponge. You can literally blow air right through.
The tape is actually sealing up the pores there. And so you're getting kind of like the smoothing effect and also the sealing effect. But I will warn too. So like Frankie Smith, I've been working, well, he's been working, but I've been just kind of going back and forth with him. I'm not going to reveal what he's working on, but he's like tried epoxy. He's done the tape, and he's actually lost with his enclosure. His enclosure actually likes to be a little more flexible. It doesn't like to be all sealed up and rigid. He had a dowel.
Then he hasn't tested the vehicle enough.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot more.
I see that. I see that often. People say that, oh, I deadened this and I lost this and that. Well, then you just haven't tested the vehicle enough.
I think
because losing energy is never going to be the option.
Like 22, 23 years ago on the Term Pro forum, this guy was like documenting all this work he was doing in his Dodge Neon. And he was a very competitive.
Boy, I love me a Neon
FBO competitor guy, and he was working his ass off. And he was like, "Man, I can see here where my box is flexing, and I'm gonna fucking take the woofers out, and I'm gonna add all this badass bracing to it." And he worked his fucking ass off on it and put it all back together. And he dragged his fucking meter out there, and he fired that thing up, and he lost like 0.9, like almost a dB. And he was like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And then it was like the day before the event, and he was like, I'm pulling the subs back out, and I'm just gonna sauce all that shit out of there and go to the show. He's like, I'll figure that out later. Like, but in the meantime, I'm gonna get that 0.9 back before I go to this fucking show, because I'll go from like second to fucking seventh losing that 0.9 or whatever. And so he was like, God damn it. He's like, well, I did it. I fucking put it back together, and I sent a burp at like 2:45 a.m. and I got all my numbers back. So off to the show in the morning, and everybody was like, good luck, bro. It's like,
so I have another theory about this concept of being like kind of flexible and not. I could be wrong because I'm not like on the East Coast enough, but from what I understand, most of like the loudest 20 hertz level builds seem to be like always kind of tapping out in the low 60s. Like I haven't seen like a big breakthrough. There's probably a few that exist.
Well, like it's not like stock cabin wise, or
well, what I've noticed is like at least out on the West Coast, and there's not too many examples, but like the extreme, we have an extreme vehicle that can do, like a 60 61 at 30 hertz, right? We have a 30 hertz class. I got a vehicle with like not even a fraction of the equipment, stock cabin, doing within like a half a decibel of that. And it's like, so what happened? And I have other examples I've looked at. And it's like, it almost seems like for the low frequency, there's actually a trade-off on how rigid your front cabin is. Is that something that I'm making up, or have you ever like?
No, I mean it makes sense to an extent because you're not
Fucks that out the window. But.
So all SPL, like these loud vehicles, whatever. All you're doing is you're trying to generally match the quarter wavelength of wherever your enclosure is to where the meter is going to be, right? That's because that's where you're going to have the most energy is a quarter wavelength in a vehicle.
Right.
The quarter wave of 30 hertz is 112 inches, which is 9.33 feet. So that's within you could achieve that.
Right.
In a longer SUV or even some other stuff. But 20 hertz, it's like 14
it's way
feet.
Longer.
Yeah. So like you're not going to have a vehicle where you can align the quarter wave of 20 hertz to the meter location. So I guess having the flex, it's not going to increase that, but it's going to, I guess it could
you could be
resonate to an extent,
yeah,
or
you're resonating the cabin.
You could be
like
reinforcing the pressure.
Yeah, the extreme builds are great
that way, right?
At higher frequency, but they're not able to like help you they're not helping you amplify at the lower frequencies.
Yeah, well, and which is like if you stand near like Steven's van or even Greg's truck, if you stand within a foot or two, if you stand near the door when he's playing lows, it probably doesn't sound like anything. It just sounds like movement, and then walk back 10 feet.
And it's doing it outside.
Yeah, you can hear. Yeah, it's a very audible thing. That's like you can't hear 20 hertz in a vehicle. All you can hear is the resonance of everything around 20 hertz,
right?
Which is
weird
to say.
Like, people, you were like, man, have you ever done anything in your Jeep's roof? Because mine would peak in the mid-20s and stuff. And like, no, actually, the more I stiffened it up, the worse it did. Like
you were stiffening it up,
butyl, and
there was positive reinforcement at that frequency, and it was coincidentally most likely near a power peak. It wasn't near an efficiency peak. So,
yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah.
The Green Monster, when it was the 618 sixth order, especially before I reinforced the floor, because I took it to a couple of events with the 618s, and I mean it would play 14.
Elon could do what? Is there a trade-off? Yeah, no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your thing was nasty, dude.
It's the same thing like with engines where you're like high horsepower versus like low end torque. Like you kind of so there's either a sweet spot or you're going for one or the other.
So all wind is volumetric displacement versus cabin opening. That is all it is. And if you have very high volumetric displacement, low cabin opening, you're going to be causing an overpressurization of the cabin, causing wind.
Well, I mean, it's that, and it's also obviously the wavelength, like you talked about before. I mean,
for wind, I don't think it has anything to do with it.
I disagree. If you have an unlimited budget and you could build something that wants to do crazy SPL and crazy lows, like, I mean, there's only two cars that really do it that I can think of, and that's Greg's and the DD Tank.
But they're sacrificing output for that low end.
Where though? Like Greg does an 81 and he does a
that's 5 dB down from the every other extreme, the other super extreme vehicles that only care about SPL.
I get it, but if you're like I'm saying, if you're trying to build something that does both, it's possible.
But you just won't be at the top of either, which is sacrificing something.
The difference is like it's like an engine.
I don't know
because it does both. You know what I mean? Like
there's no builds that are doing better numbers than
I agree.
Frequencies. Which ones? Who's louder or lower than those two? Nobody.
I think you get both, but at some point you're having to just stuff more equipment in to do it. Like you're not You're not going to get the best of both
what I'm
worlds
saying
with
is
the same number of woofers kind of deal.
I'm saying he's trading dB for wind, and they may be the lowest, but they're sacrificing overall loudness for it.
So you think that? I mean, I know that I'm sure they could, if they only focused on the lows, they could raise that low number up and sacrifice.
Or if they only focused on the high, 100%. They could raise that up a little bit. But it's 100%. Like, but if it's
look how hard Greg works for one. If Greg wants it, Greg will get it.
True.
If it does a fucking 81 at fucking 45 or 44, whatever the fuck it is, and it does a 163 at fucking 20, then you go, bro, that's some wild shit, right? And then if he gained fucking 40 Ds and he was doing an 85, but he just could not even begin to play that 20 hertz shit, well then what did he lose? He lost all of that, and that's fucking lame. You know what I mean? So it's like there's some magic in that. And he drives that thing around listening to it a little bit, so that's pretty
to hell with that, brother. Ain't no way you will catch me driving. Imagine his finger slips. All of a sudden, he's doing an 80 on his face.
Oh, shit. I never thought of that.
Bro, terrifying.
He's like,
I know
blinded instantly.
I know that whenever Joe would drive his van around, he would like unplug the radio from the harness and set it away from everything just to not risk it doing a 70 while he's driving.
Yeah, you gotta have like nuclear code or something you gotta put in before you.
Yeah, you gotta have two people turn the key. You gotta do.
Steve's over here like they just some bitches. I'm about to whip this thing down the boulevard.
Fucking did. I was there. I fucking drove behind him while he was chooching that fucking thing down the road. It was fucking gangster.
Now, and then back to Greg. I said him and I don't know. I didn't hear who else you mentioned, but they are probably the loudest, lowest, while still doing it. Being loud on the top end for sure. It's clearly doable to that level. But it takes full extreme vehicle, this and that, and I'm not knocking their work at all. I'm not doing that. Ain't no chance. That's no chance. I just want to be clear about that.
Take my build, for instance. Like, if it's just strictly about displacement, I mean, my ported section is well bigger than my cabin section. So what, I should do lows. I mean, I guess it is very
well, and I'm not saying lows. Wind and lows are different. Because you can be windy and have a shit score.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually low frequencies come with wind. I mean, the lower you are, the more. If you play like 20 hertz aggressively,
usually
it's windier than 30 hertz aggressively.
Yeah, but you could be windy and not do a great score. But so if you want to improve your your wind or whatever, close the driver door. Wind. You know what I mean? Because you're just forcing.
I see a lot of vehicles that are like they're like, oh, look at how crazy fucking windy it is, and it's like they got a window up and 3 people holding the fucking door on the other side, and you're like, well,
yeah, the wind thing is literally like how much air can you pass by the same place at once? Like how much
volumetric
air is
displacement
out of the cabin and then back into the
cabin opening.
Exactly, and if
Now, Steve, I think yours is going to improve a whole lot on the low end when you bring that sealed side down. I think it's going to get.
I think the shrinking the port.
I think it's going to be a lot.
The biggest thing.
Yeah. I think it'll be the sealed side will be the biggest change. What's up? Maybe both.
You got to do each.
Yeah.
I definitely want him to shrink it. I think I would probably be. I mean, shrink it a little and see how much it gains, and then shrink it a little more and see
that's what
if it gains.
I did the
more.
Tahoe. I shrunk it. I was like 2.2 per sub whenever I first got it all together because it was originally built for 9915 ESPs, which are big as shit.
17-inch sub.
Yeah, and it did good. And then I shrunk the sealed side from 2.2 to 1.75, and it gained across the board: efficiency, loudness, low end control, all of it. And I'm going to do it again with SDDNs. I'm going to go down like 1.65 or 1.55.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of time to test before the show this weekend. So
yeah, I mean, I would just shrink the shit out of it as best you can.
Well, I have 4 cubes. You think I should put all 4 of them in there?
I would. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, do it.
I would do all 4 and then like fucking pour some 16-pound foam on the floor. Like, go just eat up a lot of it.
Now put those 4 in and test it, and if it's way better, put 2 more in and test it, and if it's better, put 2 more in. And just keep doing it until you reach the point of diminishing return.
Drew, I sent you those measurements. I'm curious to see what you come with because I feel like I don't have a lot of room to just keep throwing them in there, even though it's 20-something cubes. Like I threw those first 3 in there, and I'm like, fuck, dude. Like every time I look at this sealed section, I don't see how it's 21-something cubes because I only put 3 cubes in there, and it's like I feel like I took up a third of the volume already. It doesn't make sense to me, even though I've done the math 10 fucking times, and it always comes out to the same damn number. And then I even had somebody else do it. I was like, you get in there and measure it, and you do the math. Let's see what your shit comes out to. This was the same, so I don't know. But
here, Steve, let me tell you something that's going to make you feel more confident and comfortable about that.
Yeah.
At least once a week, we get an email from a customer, and they're like, hey, I want to get a box for my fucking Cavalier, my Camry, my fucking car. And we go, can you give me the dimensions you want the enclosure to fit into? And they go, I looked it up online, and it says it's 32.4 cubic feet.
Get that all, yeah.
At least once a week. At least Allie would be like, I got another one of those. And I'm like, send them the video. And because in that video that I have, it's all because they just look it up on the line. Like, what's the trunk volume of a fucking car? And they're like, oh, yeah, it says it's fucking 37.4 cubic feet, bro. It should hella fit my 218s I want to put in the trunk. And it's like, that's not how that works, man. If a fucking trunk is 32 cubic feet, the lower chamber of your box is 21 fucking feet. You're good. But bring that shit down to less than 2, test it again later, bringing it down to as low as 1.6. Just keep going until it stops gaining.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing,
gaining
I
efficiency,
don't know if you guys ever
not just output.
Do you have?
I mean, you could do that with just 100 watts, 100 watts, 100 watts, 100 watts, 100 watts. Do 5,000 watt test.
I would do 250 of sub.
You guys make it seem like it's so easy to take subs out and shrink the
chamber. No, it's so
sucks ass, dude. Horrible. What are you talking about? That's why no one does it.
What were you gonna say, Ray?
Do you guys ever measure the volume for the speaker cutout for the baffle thickness?
You have to. You have to.
I don't think people do that a lot.
They don't because
there's
it's
a lot
at least
of volume.
Once a week, someone will be like, I did the math and you got the airspace wrong. No, I didn't.
You're counting the cutouts. Yeah.
Especially like a bigger enclosure like 615s or 618s. Like it's like 2 cubes. It's a lot.
Matters. Yeah.
Yeah, on mine it comes out to basically right out of cube.
Yeah.
We use the effective cone area and everything without the baffle, it's 0.66, and then the 1 inch thickness of the baffle, it's another 0.33. It's literally dead nuts a cube is what I have to add to my.
Yeah, that's good that you got that included.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't tell you how many times someone will come to me with an already done wall, and they're like,
"Put the motors down."
I can only fit 1, 2, 3, 4 motors down, and if I did that, I can't use the boxes I made to shrink it. So.
Oh well, then. No.
So. But when I do figure out how big it needs to be, I have an idea in my head of what I'm going to do.
Well, I would start with
I'm going to literally build another floor out of steel again. Like,
I was serious about 16-pound pour foam on the floor.
That's what Andrew Showers did.
Yeah,
because it'll self-level to an extent too.
Right, but I also could just build a subfloor
out
of a cage and steel. They're probably about the same price, but
probably cheaper with the steel.
I mean, pour foam's so fucking expensive. But yeah, I don't know. I'll figure it out. It's about
getting to where I'm ready to head out, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to cut it.
Nice.
All right. All you kids back at home, go fix your engine noise. go redo the math on all your boxes and account for your fucking speaker cutouts.
and measure
All
your
these
port
guys.
correctly, because you're probably not. So there's that too.
Learn how
And
to
this would
math.
be to invert your subs, guys.
Yeah, just invert your subs.
I don't think the
I mean-
cutout matters if you're standard, right?
No, it still does. The cutout's still there.
Yeah,
It's still there.
You're still dealing
But
with it.
normally, whenever you mount normally, depending, I found that it's pretty close to the cutout of the sub is going to be similar to the displacement of the sub. With within most manufacturers guess at the displacement of the sub anyway. So
Yeah, they don't like dunk it in a tank of water and
yeah, they're most are guessing, because if you look at like a DC level 5 or like a D99 or like a Sundown SDDN, they're all like 0.1 different from each other. You're like, well, which one's right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell you right now, what will affect performance more than that 0.1 of a cube is the fact that your box is flexing. So go fix that.
Yeah. Go fix your flexi boxes and your fucking engine noise and your voltage drop and your shitty grounds. And call up your buddy and tell him that he was an asshole at the show the other day and he should shut the fuck up.
Last thing before everybody goes, we're doing a really fun event October 19th, just north of Sacramento. Go on to the Facebook page. It's called IASCA California, and I've just posted it. The event is called Rolling on the River Fall Edition. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's invited. Go find it on the Facebook page. It's going to be really fun.
All right, boys. Have a nice night.
All right.
All right, kids.
Thank you, guys.
Love you guys.